If you've ever crushed one of those many-legged little creatures curled up near your door after the rain without a second thought, this video is going to make you rethink that. What it actually does when it feels threatened, and why it matters a lot more to your yard than you'd guess, is stranger than you think. Most people call it a snake louse. The name has nothing to do with lice and nothing to do with snakes. It's pure folklore, left over from an old belief that it fed on snake blood. It doesn't. It belongs to a group called Diplopoda, millipedes, and the detail that defines the entire class is exactly what makes people flinch. Every single segment of its body carries 2 pairs of legs, not one. Some recorded species carry more than 700 legs total, and yet it moves painfully, almost hypnotically slowly, because speed was never part of its plan. Unlike the centipede, fast, aggressive, armed with venom-injecting fangs right behind its head, this thing has no fangs, no stinger, can't bite anyone even if it wanted to. It doesn't physically have the equipment for it. So how does something with 0 weapons survive in a yard full of predators? Answer is chemistry. Glands running along the sides of its body produce a defensive secretion, and in a number of species, that secretion contains a genuine cocktail of compounds: aldehydes, quinones, phenols, and in some tropical species, hydrogen cyanide. Yes, you heard that right. A cyanide-based compound, manufactured naturally inside the animal's own body, deployed as a chemical weapon against anything that tries to eat it. That's not a small detail. It's the kind of fact that changes how you look at this animal completely. It isn't fragile. It's chemically armed, just silently, with 0 visible aggression. Picture a tiny chemical lab built into the side of its body. Each gland works like a sealed reservoir connected to an external pore. Pressure, something grabbing it, stepping on it, triggers that pore to release. It isn't rage, and it isn't an attack instinct. It's a purely automatic defense mechanism, refined over millions of years because it never had another way to protect itself. No speed to run, no stinger to fight back with. Chemistry was the only evolutionary option left on the table. And this isn't only a tropical trick. A common North American genus, Aphiloria, the kind you'll actually find on forest floors across the eastern United States, produces that exact same hydrogen cyanide defense. Researchers studying one recently discovered, spectacularly colorful species in the mountains of Virginia calculated that a single individual carries enough cyanide in its glands to kill 18 pigeon-sized birds. One small animal, no fangs, no stinger, moving slower than almost anything else on the ground, armed with a chemical weapon potent enough to take down more than a dozen birds at once, and it never uses it unless something is already crushing it. In some of the larger tropical species, this liquid can even be expelled as a fine jet, reaching 10 to 30 centimeters. On direct, prolonged contact with skin, some of these compounds are mildly caustic, leaving temporary stains or irritation. That's exactly the kind of reaction that, in a few viral posts online, got blamed on a centipede bite. Strange marks showing up on someone's skin after they stepped on or crushed one of these. But the mechanism is completely different. It isn't venom injected through a bite. It's a chemical secretion released purely in self-defense, almost always only when the animal is squeezed, pressed, or crushed, which is exactly why you should never crush one. Doing that doesn't eliminate a threat. It actively triggers the one reaction its glands were built to produce. But hold on, because so far you've only seen its defense. The more interesting half of the story hasn't even started yet. A snake louse spends nearly its entire life doing one thing: eating dead organic matter, fallen leaves, rotting wood, plant debris on the ground. It doesn't touch healthy living plants, doesn't attack other animals, and has 0 interest in you. What it's actually doing is breaking that dead material down into smaller and smaller particles, which fungi and bacteria in the soil then finish processing. That decomposition is what returns nutrients to the earth. In composting systems where organic waste gets turned into fertilizer, these millipedes show up naturally and speed up exactly that recycling process. They aren't a pest in your garden. They're part of the machinery that keeps soil fertile, and that machinery is older than it looks. Millipedes are among the very first animals that ever lived on land. The current record holder for oldest known land animal is a fossil millipede called Campicarus obanensis, found in Scotland and dated to roughly 425 million years old, long before most other animal groups had figured out how to survive outside water at all. Every snake louse in your yard today is, in a real sense, still doing the job its ancestors were doing hundreds of millions of years before soil, as we know it, even existed. That ancient lineage gets even bigger, literally. Millipedes have an extinct relative that still holds the record for the largest land arthropod that has ever existed, Arthropleura. Fossil remains recovered in Northumberland, in England, point to an animal roughly 2.6 meters long, about the size of a small car, and weighing as much as 50 kilograms, close to a large dog. It crawled through swampy forest floors around 300 million years ago, during the Carboniferous period, long before the first dinosaur ever existed. Nobody knows for certain what it ate. The leading theory points to nuts, seeds, and leaf litter, though some researchers suspect it may also have preyed on smaller animals. Every snake louse in your backyard today is a distant, dramatically smaller descendant of that same branch of the family tree. And about that 700 legs number from earlier, it's actually not even close to the ceiling. In 2021, scientists in Australia described a new species found roughly 60 meters underground in mining boreholes in Western Australia, Millipede persephone. The largest specimen recorded had 1,306 legs, making it the first animal ever discovered to genuinely earn the name millipede, which literally means 1,000 feet in Latin. It's blind and completely colorless, having spent its entire evolutionary history in total darkness underground. Here's one more detail that flips the gross bug image on its head. Researchers have documented capuchin monkeys and separately red-fronted lemurs deliberately picking up millipedes and rubbing them all over their fur. The compounds in the millipede's defensive secretion, the same benzoquinones meant to repel predators, also happen to repel mosquitoes. The primates appear to be using the animal as a natural insect repellent, rubbing it directly onto their skin and fur on purpose. And the millipede was never really one single animal to begin with. It's an entire category with thousands of members. Scientists have formally described more than 12,000 millipede species so far, and based on how often new ones keep turning up, researchers estimate the real number still waiting to be discovered cites somewhere around 15,000 to 20,000. You'll sometimes see the number 80,000 species repeated online. That figure isn't backed by any real data. It's an old guess that never got corrected, which means almost every region on the planet likely has its own slightly different version of the animal you just watched get flattened under a shoe. Which changes the question you should actually be asking. Not, how do I kill this, but why is it here, and what does that say about my yard? If you're seeing a lot of them at once, that's usually not a sign of a dangerous infestation. It's a sign of high moisture and a buildup of decomposing organic matter. They show up in larger numbers right after rain, or when a garden gets overwatered, because they're fleeing waterlogged soil, not invading. They prefer dark, damp spots with plenty of dead leaves or rotting wood. And that's exactly why the confusion with centipedes is so common and so damaging. In several regions, the two get lumped under the same popular name, which turns any many-legged creature into an automatic panic trigger. But the biological difference is obvious once you know what to look for. The true centipede belongs to the class Chilopoda. One pair of legs per segment, visibly faster, flatter body, and venom-injecting fangs right behind the head, used to actively hunt prey. The millipede, class Diplopoda, has two pairs of legs per segment, a more cylindrical body, slow movement, and no biting structure of any kind. One hunts, the other just processes dead leaves. And yet, in the popular imagination, both get the exact same death sentence for the crime of having a lot of legs, a mix-up that repeats itself in country after country, not just one. When a millipede actually feels seriously threatened, it doesn't attack. It curls into a tight spiral, protecting its most vulnerable underside, and simply waits for the danger to pass. That's about as far from aggressive behavior as it gets. This is an animal whose entire evolutionary strategy is built around avoiding conflict, using its chemical defense only as an absolute last resort when it's already being directly attacked. And that defense isn't uniform. With thousands of cataloged millipede species, the strength of the secretion varies a lot. Some release little more than a strong iodine-like smell, enough to drive off ants and small predators. Others, mainly larger tropical species, produce far more concentrated doses of the harsher compounds, cyanide included. So next time you see one moving slowly across a damp corner of your yard, three things are worth remembering. First, it physically cannot bite you. The equipment simply isn't there. Second, if it's crushed, it can release a chemical secretion that, in rare cases, irritates skin, which removes any logic behind killing it barehanded or barefoot. Third, it's out there processing dead material and returning nutrients to your soil, directly benefiting the plants in your garden. If the numbers are bothering you, the fix is never the shoe. Reduce excess moisture, clear leaf litter, and organic debris near the house, and cover drains where decomposing matter tends to collect. That solves the actual reason they're showing up, without destroying an animal that's quietly on your side. And if one turns up inside the house, there's no reason to panic. It just wandered in looking for moisture or escaping overwatered soil outside. The simplest, safest fix is to scoop it up with a broom or a piece of paper and set it back outside, ideally in a shaded, earthy corner. That avoids any direct contact with its secretion and keeps the animal alive to keep doing the job it's actually good at. Small changes like that, repeated consistently, cut down the number you'll find indoors, with no pesticide and no violence required. And think about the ripple effect in the yard itself. Well-decomposed soil holds water better, retains nutrients better, and grows healthier roots. Every time you wipe out the decomposers on a patch of ground completely, that work doesn't just vanish. It falls entirely on fungi and bacteria, which take far longer to process the same volume of organic matter alone. Keeping these small arthropods around, in balance, keeps a piece of your yard's natural machinery running the way it's supposed to. In the end, this animal's story was never really about danger. It's about how much an animal's appearance can fool you about the role it actually plays. Next time you cross paths with one of these in your yard, maybe the shoe doesn't have to be the first move. Maybe it's a step back instead.